Hey guys, just a quick update as I ride out Tropical Depression 19. Not a lot going on this morning. I thought maybe it would be a good time to catch you up on all the things I've been working on.
We spent decades chasing the American dream, only to realize that working more to have more wasn't exactly the dream we expected to be living. Together, we walked away from it all to rediscover what's really necessary to live a rewarding life. Inspired by other YouTubers, we bought a fixer-upper sailboat in the hopes of discovering the world anew. Just as soon as we learned to sail.
One of the first projects that I tackled was cleaning out the pilot berth. I'd like to tell you that was because it was the most important, but the truth is it was just the most cluttered and it bothered me the most, so sometimes that's what wins. I'll try to give you an overview here. In fact, maybe I can just stand up and give you a bit of an overview into where this would be. And you can see we have taken out the wood slats here one at a time to try to get to what's beyond. Let's see if I can kind of show you that. So believe it or not, this is where someone is supposed to sleep. So we're going to try to get this whole thing cleared up. By the way, everything that was on the bunk is now sitting on the dock. So try to get that aired up, or aired out rather, and then go through it and decide what's worth keeping. Probably not very much. So I had a little bit of paint left over from doing the top coat from the boatyard, and I ended up using that against the wall. In order to repaint, I had to take down all of the pieces of teak. This was all done by hand because I have yet to buy a power screwdriver. I know, it's on the list. But I took out all the teak. Actually, it was kind of handy because I could make sure that nothing was broken or cracked or anything kind of along the way in check condition. So once all the teak had been removed, I used a 2-part stripper, a little bit diluted, because I didn't want to strip it down to just bare wood. I was mostly trying to clean things up. I still used a little bit of sanding in some areas in order to do that, but once I was down to kind of uniform consistency on the teak, I used 3 coats of Cetal in order to bring back the interior finish of the boat, let all of that dry, and then reinstalled it back in the pilot berth, which turned out to be a beautiful project. The next project was a little more significant, and that was cleaning up the galley. Now, the galley is a little bit of a trick because I still have to utilize the galley because I live here on the boat, so I'm having to kind of do it in stages. But similar to the pilot berth, the biggest eyesore was this aft cabin wall. It's actually a bulkhead that stretches the entire width of the boat. It also represents the aft or backmost portion of our living quarters. So any place in the boat, essentially, if you're looking aft, you're looking at this wall. And this wall was an eyesore. It is a Formica wall, and it had a lot of things in the 40 years that it has been in place. Stuck to it, nailed to it, screwed onto it, you name it. There was all kinds of things that that were in place at the moment, including like a single sideband radio, even a microwave that was sitting on a desk, or a platform top like a bench top, as well as just, you know, hooks and things like that that you'd expect in a galley. So cleaning that wall took a little bit of effort, and once clean, I realized that there were too many kind of imperfections. Even just, you know, a magic eraser is only going to go so far. So what I selected was a peel and stick tile. Now, this is not going to be in the order that it was installed, but let me give you a little bit of a tour. Okay, this shelf is actually where the microwave sat, and under this shelf is actually a compressor. There it is, a compressor for the refrigerator. And between the microwave and the radios that were installed above it, this cabinet, which is a wet locker, wasn't even accessible. I didn't even know it was there. In fact, I found a couple of jackets in there. I'm storing my Fowley in there currently. As you move across this cabin wall, you can see the peel and stick tile I've installed. This is actually the engine compartment. It is right below the stairs that go up to the companionway. That would give access to it. Again, a project for another day, but you can at least see the focal point of this aft wall. And then this takes us into the formal galley. So I made a budget-friendly decision to reuse the sink that was in place. I did, however, replace the faucet, and I'll give you a little bit a tour of that. So the faucet itself, this is our hot and cold water faucet. Got a little bit of sunshine finally shining through, with an extended sprayer nozzle. And this actually system is what kind of inspired this. This is our filtered water system. I'll come back to that. This is actually salt water that is operating on a foot pump. Let me get my foot pump going. There we go. And is what I use to wash dishes. So that is our primary utility, is that saltwater wash down. Then I give everything just a quick rinse in the normal water. This water is our most filtered water on the boat, and it is accessible underneath the sink. So under the sink is where we have water supply lines coming in from each of our tanks. We have starboard, our bow tank, and then of our port tank. And we have one kind of master control on that as well, which hopefully you can see with the flashlight. Some of this becomes filtered water that's coming off the main system. So the goal behind the filtered water, I guess, ultimately would be drinking water, but what it's really serving is boiling water for cooking, because we haven't gotten to the point where we've cleaned or inspected our tanks too much here for our freshwater system. The rest of this system that you're seeing is actually the water filter, or it separates water from fuel, and that is part of the engine, which is also accessible behind this compartment here. So a little bit of plumbing work here. You can see a couple of new lines to get in place, and then of course the foot pump that I was showing before is right down here at the bottom. So leaving the new sink, we installed some new LED lights, one here as well as one which is on up above us, giving us a little bit of light. And this is our dry storage, or our pantry type area. We also have a couple of sliders behind the cooktop here. And this is our grill, or at least our oven and stove. This is a propane system. It is totally operational. This is just a like a running board that sits on top of it and moves, and I am currently trying out an induction cooktop to determine if that's the way I want to go in the future. So a little bit of a test there. I'll save that for another video. This part of the galley is actually, let me move some things, is our refrigerator. It is a top loading type refrigerator, and you can see that this is the white Formica. In fact, it's in the best condition of any of it, but you can probably tell the difference between old and new. Hopefully there's even a cooler color. And since we have a little sunshine, here is a little bit of an overview of what the galley currently looks like. Big improvement. The toilet system is the one system on the boat so far that was not operational from the moment that I bought the boat. So I knew coming into this that I was going to end up having to remodel, redo, refinish, replace everything in the head. We did get a bid for this while we were hauled out in the marina, and in retrospect we ran out of time, so we wouldn't have been able to handle it anyway, but the bid was just too high to have somebody else do it. So again, to stay budget friendly, I have become the boat plumber. So replacing the head begins with removing all of the old non-functioning plumbing. And this starts with the poo tank, which is ironically located underneath the V-berth, which is essentially the master, the only bedroom in this boat. Well, it's really too bad you cannot smell this. Horrible. The V-berth is not currently operational for a number of reasons, but it began with the location of the poo tank. In fact, I'm shooting this update from my lovely bunk here on the settee, which is a fancy way of saying I sleep on the couch. Sleeping on the couch. Once the tank was removed, it was time to begin to remove the poo line. Okay, so poo tank removed. Now we need this line. That's the vent. This is actually the waste pump out, which, if I drop the camera, you might be able to see slides all the way under the V-berth and comes out in the anchor locker. So here we are in the anchor locker, me and the anchor chain, which needs a lot of love, but not today's project. And where we're headed is right here. We need that line to come off. And we also need that black vent line in the back to come off. So the next steps of the job were essentially to just follow the poo lines through the cabinets and into the bathroom, into the head. Removing, I would make cuts every few feet in order to feed it through. It's not the most flexible hose. And as you can imagine, this was not a glamorous job. Look, old poo. Once the poo tank is removed, the second smelliest juncture was the toilet itself. This was quite a challenge. It was difficult to reach some areas as a single person. It was really a two-man job. I needed someone on top with, really what I needed was like an impact wrench or something on top, which I don't have yet, and someone underneath being able to hold bolts, but it turns out a couple were stripped, so when all else fails, there's a saw that will get through anything. That left the toilet base. The toilet base required a hacksaw in order to saw through the strip bolts and then remove all of the sealant and caulking. This is not the first toilet that has been in the head, so there are a handful of holes still in the floor. So next on that job will be epoxying those areas, but frankly, holes were the least of my concern. There still were poo lines to remove. To the far end of the system is the poo tank and the pump out. The opposite end of the system is actually a through hole or a ball valve that allows you to discharge overboard. Now, this is not done inside the United States. In the US boats, we go to holding tanks, and those holding tanks are going to be pumped out. But elsewhere in the world, the regulations are different, and you are allowed, definitely on passage or just out in open ocean, to be able to jettison all of your toilet waste overboard. Now we have a macerator pump as well, or we're putting one in, a new one in, that essentially is a series of grinders and gears that crush everything up. So everything coming out is liquefied. So it's not, I wouldn't call it treated waste, but it is semi-processed waste in order to be released into the ocean. In any case, the other end of the system is a through hole. It's a hole in the boat. The next challenge with the plumbing system is the through hole for the discharge. And let me show you what I'm stuck against. It's essentially a frozen valve. So let me get a little light here. And you see, it just won't wiggle. I didn't really want to force this naturally because it's a hole in the boat. A fair amount of penetrating oil. About a day's worth every so often. And then as I walk past, I give it more of a wiggle. Slowly but surely, we really don't need a leak here. And then ultimately the valve handle was unfrozen, and I was able to move it from being fully open to fully closed. Through hole closed, yay! Or so I thought. And actually I had a lot of self-discussion here as to whether or not I was ready to cut the line, but I knew it had to come out. So new plumbing hose ordered, things on the way, that line needed to come out. It turned out to be equally as smelly, maybe arguably worse smelling, because it smelled of seawater, which is organic or has life in it. So that was not a great smell to have in the boat. I had cut it out of the bathroom, but there was still a small stretch of it to go, and frankly, it's right here in the salon. It's underneath the opposite couch from the one that I'm sitting on. So I decided to gut it up. I knew it needed to come out anyway, and I went ahead and cut the line, which is when I found out that the ball valve was not closed. This is 1.5 inch line. To use the snippers, it means two cuts. Cutting from one direction, rotating the snippers the other direction, and cutting from the second direction in order to cut cleanly through the pipe. Of course, I knew on my first cut that something wasn't going right because I was receiving water. I guess I knew that some water was going to come out. I did not know that it would continue to come out, and as the calcification began to break loose, even more water came through, and I never got the second cut. Instead, I worked quickly, reaching for a wood plug in order to plug the pipe, but there was so much buildup inside of the hose that I couldn't get a clean hold on it, which meant I needed to call for help. Uncle Dave came to the rescue. I tried to sink my boat, but Dave just was not going to have it. Man. So the combination of the wood plug and the duct tape is now the only thing keeping the seawater out of the boat. But it's doing a good job and it's holding right now. So new plumbing lines are on the way, and at some point it will take two of us again, but we'll reverse the process. So stay tuned in a future video for what happens there. So with everything removed, what's left to do is design a new toilet system to go into our existing space. And since I've got some of the panels opened up, I'm going to go ahead and replace a few of the other fixtures related to the sink and the shower as well. So thanks for spending some time with me on this rainy day. That's kind of the update on the projects I've been working on since arriving here in Key Largo. Of course, I'm only halfway through this plumbing project, so you'll have to tune in next time to see if I actually sink the boat or we get a flushing toilet. Cliffhanger.